Hi, Victoria. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, it's great to be here.
Oh, it's so good to have you come and have a chat with us. And I know a lot of people will know you from your TV work, but might not know how heavily involved you are in promoting the latest science and methodologies in dog training, and also the work you do supporting rescues and animal welfare more generally. And if that wasn't enough, how you're supporting the teaching of a new generation of trainers. So there's quite a few things for us to discuss today on the podcast. But one of the most important things for me is how you've really, over your career, seen that shift in how we do the training of dogs and the importance for you through your different medium and different media that you use to promote a more kind, humane, positive way of working with dogs. Can you tell us a little bit about where that focus has come from for you?
Well, I've been around a long time. I'm getting old. So I've had a journey, and my journey started when I was quite young as a dog walker, and then learning from mentors and going to seminars and trying to get as much information as I could from books, because then there wasn't a course. If you just wanted to be a dog trainer, there really wasn't a course you could take to become a dog trainer. So you pretty much had to do it by yourself. And so I was schooled, I would say, to begin with. My mentors were very much pack leader theory, in that they believed you had to be the leader of the pack, and that if your dog was misbehaving, then it was doing so because it wanted to take over as top dog. And the stuff that we now call traditional training, old style, medieval, flawed, but that was how I was taught. At the same time, though, I was also taught never to physically put my hands on a dog. So even though we used sound aversion and other techniques on how to instill punishment, we really, I was taught, you don't use shock collars or anything to hurt a dog, or you don't hit dogs. So I was sort of on the edge, I would say, of pack theory. And then I changed, and it was actually, you can see throughout It's Me or the Dog how the first season is more of that pack theory, and then how I evolve. And truly, throughout, now we've done 10 seasons, how I've evolved to how I am now, and continue to evolve, because, as you well know, Andrew, that any trainer that is as geeky as we are, we listen to our peers, we take note of the latest behavioral and cognitive science, we move with the times. And so now we're here on the brink of this, again, this another massive change, and it's really exciting. So I would say my journey started because I've been at this a long time, and I have laid myself open to possibilities.
And that's a really lovely way of putting that, isn't it? Because sorry about that. Oh, sorry about that, Victoria. I can edit
No
all this
worries.
bit out, so don't worry about that. That's on my bloody phone's attached to the computer, which is a
Oh,
pain in
don't
the
worry.
bum,
Oh, no,
isn't it?
no, I'm going to turn my phone off too.
Yeah, so that's a pain in the bum.
We can start again if you don't want to edit.
No, I can edit. I can edit really easy, so that's
Okay.
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 Right, so that was a nice point that you stopped on there, and I'll carry on. I think that's really important, isn't it? Because you've obviously been on TV for how long now? Is it 10 years? Or
Yes, I started in 2005. I had the
yeah.
idea for It's Me or the Dog in late 2004, and we started in 2005. So yes, a long time, 17 years now.
And I think it shows how what's been great watching your TV show kind of evolve is how you've kept up with the latest understandings of things, and as we keep learning more. And I think for many people in the public, especially, they got fixed or kind of almost stuck in a moment in time. So all those years ago, the dominance model, that kind of pack theory thing that you were talking about, was the norm, and that's what we saw, and that's what we saw a lot on television. Actually, and we still do, sadly, in some areas. And you've allowed yourself to move forwards as we've learned more about the best ways that we can have a good, healthy relationship with these wonderful animals. And I think that's important for the general public to recognize as well, that the things that we might have seen as being the norm or the right thing to do maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, there is a different approach out there now. And we need to try and find better ways to get people more educated into that. And that's the great thing about your TV show, that it's had that longevity so people can go on that journey with you. Because you've had a lot of people who follow you who are waiting for the next thing that they might see through the TV show, through a different medium.
Yeah, and this last series of It's Me or the Dog, which I've just filmed and it just aired, I think has really, it was exciting for me to be able to do it again because I was able to show more updated thinking, updated techniques. And it's not that everything has changed, but a lot has. And to show its effectiveness as well, because if you see on It's Me or the Dog, you see that I'm working with all kinds of dogs with all kinds of issues. And so I think it shows that the beauty of positive training can work across all breeds. And, we before, gosh, in the break, I would say between 2013 and 2022, or 2021, when I filmed my show for it to air now, during that break, I went on to do a lot of other different television series. And I also worked with the police, and I was with them for 5 years. When I say worked with, I filmed with them and helped train their canines here in the United States. And I think that really opened my eyes to the fact that if police dogs can be taught very successfully in a positive way, there is absolutely no doubt that a companion dog can be as well. But I saw some terrible techniques there, as well as some amazing techniques. In that world here, and especially in the United States, which is pretty rough, there were trainers that taught their dogs, and these dogs were more emotionally stable. They were able to say hello to people, yet still be great apprehension dogs. They were much more, they were happier. They lived indoors with their handler, and it was a job that they did, and it was a team. And so you can't get much more validation than that. Seeing and experiencing not just training, but actually going on, I think I went on 100 more plus calls with these dogs and their handlers. And so I've really done my best to educate myself on everything out there. People who use shock collars, people who use the shock collars for sports, as well as those who don't, and I think it's education, so that and you can pick what you think works, what you think is the best. And I'm sorry, there's no contest now. I've seen it. I've seen the difference between dogs that have been trained in a punitive way and dogs that have been trained to think that everything is, that this is great, that good things are gonna happen. I'm safe. Yes, even with police dogs, it's amazing. It's just like I want to sing it from the rooftops.
The good thing is, I think for the vast majority of the general public, it's a relief. Actually, it's a relief
Oh,
that there
it's
is
a
other
huge
options
relief.
for them, because they don't want to kind of fall out or have a go at their dog just to get them to do things. And I think what's been great with the education that you've been doing through the TV, and also with your education for other trainers, is separating those two things. So it's the first thing is thinking about, okay, what is it you want your dog to do? Great. Okay, we can build that vocabulary with positive reinforcement. We can do that as a partnership. Brilliant. And that's the best way for anybody to learn, right? We all learn best when we're calm and focused and motivated. And then the second thing is, okay, so this is not what you want your dog to do, or there is some challenges there, right? Let's get to the bottom of what that dog's experiencing, which is triggering those challenging behaviors, and then we can help the dog. And if the dog feels differently, they'll act differently, and that helps you. And this is something you've been really putting out through your different platforms, again, about recognizing the power of doing things in this way that is more connected with the animal and their emotional experience.
It is exhausting for people, and it is exhausting for dogs to be continually punished all the time. So instead, forget all that and teach your dog what to do instead. if they're living in our environment, it's a weird, strange environment. They don't speak our language, and we have to start having two-way conversations. We call it at VSA and at Positively two-way conversations. And two-way conversations means you listen to your dog, and you listen by not just listening to the vocalizations, but you're listening to them by watching their body language. And then once you know why the dog is doing something, then you can explore how you're maybe going to, and I know you hate this, but it is because this is the lingo that people use, change behavior. And mostly when I see people, they say this to me: I want to stop my dog from doing X, Y, and Z. I want to stop my dog. My dog is doing, I want to stop it. And so we take the emphasis on stopping. We put the emphasis on why the dog is doing that challenging behavior. And then we explore, and it's really fun and cool to explore how we're going to teach the dog an alternate behavior, how we're going to create a space where the dog feels safer and more confident, and in a place where he or she is willing and excited to learn. That's we're asking why before we even do the how. And I think so you call it task orientated, right? I'm taking words from you, Andrew. I'm taking that word relief. I'm taking that word task orientated or those words, because I think they're really powerful.
And I think the thing there as well is that there is a friction, I think, because one of the things about many owners, guardians with their dogs is, on the one side, they actually recognize that their dog might be struggling. They recognize that there might be stress involved. A number of people I speak to, when I ask them, even if they're using punitive training, I say, what do you think the dog's experience? I think they're probably stressed. But they feel that they've been given these tools and options, and they don't know about anything else, because sadly on television, again, a lot of the shows out there are just showing how to stop a dog from communicating, or how you kind of suppress a behavior. So there is a friction there. So a lot of people end up doing things which is the opposite to what they actually feel their dog might be needing.
Can I give an example of this? So and again, it's just one example, but I had a poodle called Ziggy who was really confused about the baby coming into his home, and confused when the baby started walking, became a toddler, and could not settle, could not relax. Even when baby was napping, there was this, and you'd call it weird, but he just could not settle with that baby being in the house. And even when she was taken by her grandmother, would come and take her for a walk, he still stood by the front door waiting for the baby to come back. And so on one hand, you had this dog that was just, I just think, confused, and but also conflicted, because I think he couldn't understand this baby, yet he wanted to. It wasn't just a clear-cut case of dog hates baby, dog fears baby. It wasn't that. It was much, much more. And on a very weird level as well, when things did connect between them, they had an understanding, that baby, that toddler, and that dog, that I couldn't understand, that the parents couldn't understand. It worked. It was something between them. I've never seen it happen before. But anyway, one of the things that he would get him really frustrated, and in fact, a lot of dogs do this. If you pick up a cat, a dog might get very, reactive and bark a lot and jump a lot. And he did this with when Faith was picked up. Whether it's making her more vulnerable whilst she's being picked up, prey driven, chase driven. This dog, you can put any label on it, but I wanted to look at the behavior. So I knew that I'm not going to be able to tell him off. He can take himself away. I've given him space to go and take himself away if it's all too much for him. I'm also teaching the people when they need him to go away, to teach him to go away with a cue. So I'm also going to do that. But essentially, I'm also going to give him something to do when either baby face is in the room or being picked up. Snuffle mats, puzzle toys, chews, all kinds of things, so that his energy can go onto something. Well, it took a while, but my goodness. And when she sent 6 weeks later some video of the toddler watching Peppa Pig on television next to Ziggy on his snuffle mat, and then sucking on his blanket because he became a blanket sucker, so relieving anxiety, but something that I do believe he enjoyed. That's what it is now. Because I recognized, I didn't tell him off. I recognized, you need something too, buddy. You want a connection with this child. You don't know how to do it. So I'm gonna help you do it. That's the new way of training.
And it's so important, and that's a really good example, I think, because when you think about the vulnerability of child and dog,
Yes.
and what we know, you and I, is that, and we totally get it. We totally get it how people get frustrated with their dog's behavior. Same with your kids' behavior, your partner's behavior. We get frustrated with the behavior of others, and it's a very instant thing to do to want to try and correct that behavior because we see the behavior as the issue. But if underlying that is a real, we talk about, you and I, behavior as an expression of need. For example, if we don't address that need, what dangers do we have down the line? Especially when we think about children and dogs, for example. I worked with a dog years ago who used to growl and lunge at children, and the caregivers got a trainer in. Within 2 sessions, the dog stopped the growling and lunging because they were using punitive measures, and guess what? It works if you just want to stop the behavior. And it was 6 months later when that dog actually bit a child, and it was an inevitability, really, because they'd stopped the dog from communicating, got lulled into that full sense of security, and then one day the dog's like, you know what, I just can't deal with this now. Now, luckily, when the dog did snap at the child, it was a surface kind of wound. It wasn't a puncture. But when I got involved, then the dog's already got a destruction order against it, and luckily we managed to turn that around and help the dog. But the point is, the issue for that dog wasn't the behavior. That was the dog communicating something. The issue for that dog was how it felt about kids.
Yes.
And we've got to change that if we truly want to get to a situation where the dog can cope better. So that's a really good example what you've got there. And what I love about the new TV show, of course, so here in the UK, it's on Really. And I think it can still be caught up on the catch-up side of things with Really
Discovery
on catch-up
Plus,
TV. Yeah. Is how much you've focused in on not just the training. Training is important because we have to build that vocabulary and teach the dog the things that we need them to do in order to be safe, and so we can communicate. But there was a big emphasis on looking at giving the caregivers, the owners, more information about how to read their dog, how to recognize some of that stress when it's building, looking at management. And management is seen as a bit of a poor cousin, but as you know, it's really important. And also it's really easy, right? It's so easy.
It's really easy. I call it the magic wand. And in courses that I'm developing now, just for dog lovers, for the Positively courses, we really go into the power of management. We just call it, this is the trainer's magic wand. It's not magic, we know that, but it does feel like magic, and why not use it? It's the most powerful thing you can have. So for example, if you've got a dog that's jumping up at Granny as Granny comes through the front door, well, put dog behind a baby gate. That's your management, and give dog something to do, because don't just put the dog behind the baby gate and that's it. So dog's going nuts behind there as Granny enters because he's so excited to see Granny. Give him a toy that he can, like a Kong wobbler or something, or a snuffle mat where he can, Granny's coming over, he comes out the toy, he can really get all of his energy that goes towards jumping at Granny out on that ball. So he's got something to do as well. And that management, because we never do management unless it's combined with enrichment. That management and enrichment is so powerful. And your word, of course, relief. You're providing relief for the people instantly. And again, Sue, this wonderful person, Sue, who had these 2 dogs from Romania, Kylo and Ren, who were very, very nervy. Very nervy and really didn't like being around people. I was like, Sue, when you have people over, just put a baby gate up. You don't have to socialize your dogs. They don't want to socialize. In fact, they want to be apart. If they want to look through the baby gate, they can, but they can also go into their room where they don't have to see anybody. She said, I can do that. I don't. Yes, so you can do that. So much happier. Dogs are so much happier. She's so much happier. The people feel much happier coming into our home because they feel safer. And then what happens? Kylo and Ren are like, oh, well, hello, we might want to come out now. because the pressure's taken off everybody.
Yes, and I think that actually that episode, Kylo and Ren, for me, was really quite groundbreaking on a television style thing, because the temptation, of course, with TV, as we know, is if you've got a couple of very troubled dogs, let's go in and make something quite dramatic out of this, because that's what, how it can be sometimes. But it was the opposite, and it was really powerful, and actually allowing Kylo and Ren to come down a bit, to kind of decompress a little bit, get them so that they're in a different state where they're actually thinking, actually, I would like to do this social processing. And then I think it was Ren who was like, actually, I wouldn't mind a bit of social engagement, and it all changes. And I think one of the big things for that TV show that I hope people got is that, yes, when that doorbell goes, when Granny turns up, that dog in the room right now is not capable of doing much that makes sense, because they're off on one, right? Because they're so excited or whatever is going on. But that dog, 10 minutes from now, half an hour from now, 45 minutes from now, in a different state, can do a completely different type of introduction.
Yes, completely. And it's safer for everybody. And, you know, I mean, again, that's where I've evolved. I used to put dogs that are very excitable or even a little bit nervy, I would teach them to go to their mat and sit and stay, or lie down and stay whilst the person comes in, which is great. I mean, it looks wonderful. And the dogs did it and the people did it. It's hard, but they did it and it was successful. But I don't do that anymore, because I'm putting excitable or agitated or nervy dogs into a situation of a downstay when someone comes into their home. Seriously? For some dogs, that might be appropriate, right? You can teach your puppy that. Okay, maybe. But I'm not going to do it for dogs that are nervy, or because that's hard and it's not making them feel better. It's just putting them in a position where they're stressed. Sorry, Andrew, I hate downstays. Stay a little bit, fine, we can teach a little bit. A long downstay? No, stop it.
I agree. And I think when we think about how important movement is for safety and for decompression, in other words, de-stressing a little bit and finding that space, being forced really into one area where you can't do that movement can be really problematic for some of these dogs. And I agree with you. God, I look back even a couple of years ago, Victoria, of what I used to think was a good idea. I wouldn't do that now, and I'm guessing in a couple of years' time, you and I will be saying the same thing. Oh God, remember when we used to do that, Andy?
Yeah, yes.
But this is the point. It's exciting, and it's all about thinking about matching the care and support needs for the caregiver, the owner, and the care and support needs of the dog, and allowing that interpretation of that individual dog in front of them, because ultimately the caregivers know their dog really well. They love their dog really well. You and I talk about that we talked about earlier, this thing about getting into task. A lot of owners can get into that task brain, which is, I've been told because I saw it on the telly that my dog must do this, or I have to do it this way. Actually stepping into their lives a little bit and thinking, well, what's going to be best for you there? What do you actually want? And what's the best thing? You know your dog really well. What do you think they can do and not do? So it's a new kind of discussion, isn't it?
It is a new discussion. I also think it's Me or the Dog. I was allowed to be more me. You know, when It's Me or the Dog first came out, it was all this persona of wearing all black and driving fancy cars, which I do wear black, and I like driving fast, fancy cars. I don't have them, but I like to drive them. And so it was a bit of a gimmick, and hey, it got eyes. And I was pretty direct, but they really wanted to be very super nanny like, because of course it's the same company. But we really changed, and now what you see was always me, but just a little heightened, what I was expected to be, directed to be. Now what you see is just me, which is, yeah, I'll tell you like it is, but I have a whole lot of empathy and compassion, and I want to make it work. That's I think the mark of a trainer that, well, a good trainer. I never say I'm the best trainer, but I think I've earned my I think I'm a good trainer now. I think I've earned that.
Well, exactly. I think we're all trying to be the best that we can be. I think that's for us, And I think that's an important point you mentioned there, because one thing I think people forget is when It's Me or the Dog first came out, regardless of how it was put together and how it was presented, it was the first show that was looking at a way of doing things in a more humane way, really.
Yeah.
Whether you were ready for it or not, you were very much elevated to the poster girl of, hang on, this is the new way of doing stuff. And it comes with a lot of pressure, right? That kind of thing, I know. But that's the whole point with TV. The whole world of TV is about that. And that's why, for me personally, as a kind of, obviously we know each other, but also as a fan, and this new series of It's Me or the Dog, it was like revisiting an old friend who's moved on a bit and matured a bit, and it just felt very different. And again, it's quite pioneering, because where is this stuff on telly? We've got more shows now, thankfully, that look at positive reinforcement on telly, which is great. But where are the shows that are really looking about that individual dog now, not looking at just a formula, looking at something that's more specific? And I say the Kylo and Ren episode, especially for me, because I remember messaging you actually when I saw it. I said, yeah, wow, that's kind of what we need right now.
Yeah, I think Kylo and Ren, especially with all of their fears, and Kylo's, well, both of them, Ren was showing some really concerning behavior and potentially dangerous behavior. And I think understanding that he wasn't being nasty, understanding his fear, and then allowing him to observe Kylo, who was more able to be sort of wanting a social connection, and just having Ren there watching and learning by Kylo doing some things, and then Ren sort of wanting to do it, is a really way to show a great way to show social learning and the power of social learning. Gosh, I mean, I always say dogs are dogs, and they're just dogs, and it's taking human beings a bloody long time to understand them, work with them, live with them, and treat them humanely. Yeah, there are other shows and everything, and I have to be careful in commenting on other trainers, but and I definitely used to comment more than I do now. Now I just don't even bother, because it's just not even worth the time. But I will make a comment now, is just, we're done. To all of those TV companies out there, whether you're Netflix or you're Amazon, or you're in the United States or UK, we're done with men mostly punishing dogs, suppressing their behavior. We're done with that on our screens. Enough already. Let's have more men doing it the right way, more women doing it the right way on our screens, showing the public how to be humane, to teach your dog, and to live with your dog successfully. I've said it. I mean, and it's just, I have this thing that's like, why are all of these streaming companies, everything, why is it always men? And then there's me. Yeah. There needs to be other men doing it the right way, and there needs to be more women. This is a female-dominated industry. Why is it just me on there?
Well, amen to that. And I think there is a cultural shift. I think I know over here in the UK, some of the TV shows, again with men, doing it in the more machoistic way of, let me show you what I can do with this dog. There are more and more people complaining about that. There's I know there was a bit of a tour being arranged over here, and a lot of the shows had to be cancelled because people weren't going, or there was people. I think people want something different, and thankfully we've got you kind of showing that way, and it will come. I think it will come, and even just having these chats like this, it helps a lot. And for us, obviously at Pet Remedy, we have a product which is designed to help animals to to de-stress and to be in a calmer state, so that any support and training can have a better chance. And I think the fact that even people are buying these products, they recognize that actually maybe my animal's quite stressed right now, and maybe I need to look at things. But it's no point them. I had an email recently from somebody who through my role at Pet Remedy, who got the product great, got a local trainer who was using aversive methods, and for them, they're like, well, hang on, this doesn't make sense. So they reached out. They say, well, hang on the one hand, I think my dog's stressed, but the trainer's telling me no, it's not stressed. It's because they're trying to take over the house. It's the same old stuff. And sadly, as you know, our industry is unregulated. You and I have been involved with trying to look at that in the UK here. But I think the general public, our product and other calming products, of course, people reach out because they recognize, actually, I need to support my dog, and because I think they're being stressed. We've just got to make sure they're getting the right support to match their instinctive view already Because many
And
people get it.
that requires getting, if you need help, getting the right kind of trainer. And that's where VSA comes in, because we, it's Meal the Dog started because I want to educate. I wanted to educate right from the beginning, right? I was seeing the waste of life in the shelters where I lived in New York City, Manhattan. And I was like, there has to be a better way of getting this message out to a larger group of people. That's why I created the show anyway. But it still continues now. There has to be, there's a better way to teach. We know that it's safer, it's more humane. And so that's why VSA, Victoria Stilwell Academy, why that we founded that now 6 years ago, myself and my husband, and have created, I think, the best course that there is out there if somebody wants to become a trainer. And so now we have wonderful VSA graduates that are out there walking the walk, talking the talk, being great assets and advocates for dogs and helpful towards people. And it's very exciting. And as well, the VSPDTs, Victoria Stilwell Positive Dog Trainers, which are dog trainers that train under the same philosophy. And so, and then with everything that you're doing, Andrew, that there are more and more boots on the ground giving the right kind of information. And I truly see those scales tipping now. It's wonderful. I was very alone when I first started 20 years ago, very alone. But I don't feel so alone anymore.
No, and we've definitely got the the wind behind us, I think, on this. And so anybody listening in the UK, we'll make sure that with the information with the podcast that we give information so people can search for a VSA, VSPDT trainer. And of course, in the UK, we also have the charter which VSA and VSPDT are part of. So if you can't get a VSA or a VSA or VSPDT trainer in your area, then look for somebody who is covered by the charter, because you're going to know that you're going to get somebody who's going to come and treat you with respect and the dog with respect, and work in a very humane way. Well, thank you so much, Victoria, for today. We've covered quite a bit there, and it's always a joy to talk to you. And I know we've known each other for a while, and I know your passions lie way beyond the TV work. There's a lot of stuff that you do, and a lot of stuff that you do that never gets reported. And I just want to say thank you on behalf of the dogs out there, because there's that saying that you and I have said many times: the dogs are waiting. They're waiting for us to kind of work stuff out. And thanks to your work, we're getting closer to that.
And right back at you, Andrew. Thanks for having me on. It's been a pleasure.